about Mia Love.
All right, folks, welcome back to News One Now. Republicans, guess what? You're going to have a sister, Mia Love, out of Utah in the U.S. House of Representatives, the first black woman ever elected to Congress. Come January, you also, of course, are going to have Tim Scott. He will finish out the final 2 terms of Jim DeMint's term in the United States Senate. And we talked about, of course, Larry Hogan, who won as governor in Maryland. Well, he has a black lieutenant governor in Maryland. You mentioned him, Bob Rutherford, who won as well. And then, of course, Will Hurd. He won a congressional seat in Texas. He becomes the first African-American Republican sent to Congress from Texas since Reconstruction.
Back to the first, Mia Love, the first Republican member of Congress from ever, not just from Utah, but from ever.
Yeah.
A big right to life platform, and she thinks she's going to make a huge difference. Here's what she has to say.
Many of the naysayers out there said that Utah would never elect a black Republican LDS woman to Congress. And guess what? Not only did we do it, we were the first to do it. So let this be a lesson to the nation that we're not interested in dividing Americans based on gender, race, social status. We are more interested in the integrity and the honesty of a candidate, someone who is going to return power back to the people and away from Washington.
LDS is Latter-day
Saints.
I thought it was some sort of sexual orientation. What's LDS? Some new letters I don't know about.
The other piece is also she is the child of Haitian immigrants.
Right. And now a Mormon Republican from Utah.
From Haiti.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a whole lot of constituency going on there. So let's, because here's the deal. Will Hurd beat a Latino incumbent in Texas. He's an African-American, former CIA officer,
operative, right?
CIA operative. Then, of course, you have Senator Tim Scott. And so you have folks in leadership positions.
Yeah. Look, I got to say this. I interviewed Orlando. We talked about Mia Love before. I think she's sort of a separate case. I think she'll be a great representative for the state of Utah.
But she is black.
Yeah, she is black, but I don't think she's... the significance of some of these positions is whether or not the Republican Party strategically can use them to sort of appeal to other black voters.
I don't think... I'm sorry to cut you off, but the significance of Senator Tim Scott getting elected, this is the first African-American elected to both the House and the Senate.
Yes, that's why they're different.
But is that a good thing for African-Americans?
Tim Scott is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Tim Scott is fantastic.
But here's the deal, though. But here's the deal, though. You have Congressman Jim Clyburn from South Carolina, who has been highly critical of Tim Scott, who said, well, you want to call it progress, somebody who votes against the Affordable Care Act, somebody who's, and he said when it came to also issues of voter suppression, he said, I don't call that progress.
He said he votes
This gets back to 1992 when, Clarence Thomas was, was nominated to the Supreme Court. You can't look at all black people the same way. Thurgood Marshall said it, and you cannot say.
And look at them as individuals. You're right.
Yeah, and Tim Scott, what a lot of us stand for. And clearly, we are not monolithic. We are not. We all have different views on political issues. But at the end of the day, we definitely cannot go just by the skin color of somebody and say they stand for what I stand for.
Well, we never should. We should judge them on their character, on what they have to offer.
And Tim Scott is probably the one that I would look at his politics.
He has an opportunity agenda that I hope everyone takes a look at that would expand scholarship programs for those who can't afford to go to quality schools.
Get rid of public schools altogether.
That would increase apprenticeship programs for people who have a gap in employment. Here's
the value of Tim Scott in a common sense legislative way. Tim Scott is about his job. Tim Scott is about representing his district. Tim Scott does that undercover, his state. He does that undercover boss thing where he goes undercover and works in different jobs and learns about his community. That's what you're supposed to do as a senator. That's different from somebody like Mia Love, who sort of toned down her rhetoric, who ran initially saying, I'm going to tear apart the Congressional Black Caucus from the inside. So that's what we're talking about. If you want African-American candidates to not only represent the Republican Party, but reach out to other black voters, they have to be people who are doing their job first, not just attacking black folk in general.
Well, she hasn't even gotten there. I mean, she'll be there in January.
But that's what she said. That's what she said.
But the bottom line, black Republicans made history on Tuesday night.
But now you got the Congressional Black Caucus is going to have some Republican members.
Well, that's if they choose to join.
Yeah, she's not going to join.
She's not going to join. Well, how's she going to tear apart from the inside?
Right, because Senator Tim Scott chose not to join.
Right.
Now, when Congressman Gary Frank was there from Connecticut, he did join the CBC when he was there.
J.C. Watts did not.
Right.
It's not called the Black Democratic Black Caucus. It is just the Black Caucus. But what I'm trying to get at is the agenda of black people, if that's what we're interested in talking about here. Does anybody know what it is? So we can say that he votes against the interests of African Americans 95% of the time, as James Clyburn said about Tim Scott. Well, the African American interests are not, everybody's not the same. So is there an agenda that we can hold people accountable to?
Well, you've got to look at some of the institutions in our communities. That starts with the churches, that starts with our historically black colleges and universities, that starts with our business and civic organizations, and ask what is it that they're trying to advance, what is it that they're pushing.
Well, they may
the
not
church's
agree.
Education's a big issue for them. The Urban League, it's about jobs and one nation underemployed. We're trying to.
So let me state the fact. So this is what the Washington Post reported. When it came to the NAACP's annual scorecard, Senator Tim Scott got an F. He voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. He voted to hold Attorney General Eric Holder in contempt of Congress. He opposed the Congressional Black Caucus's budget proposal and also voted to delay funding to a settlement between the United States and black farmers who alleged that the federal government refused them loans because of their race. Now, that's what the Washington Post reported about Senator Tim Scott. You talked about his opportunity agenda and some other issues as well.
Right, and I would say when it comes to the Affordable Care Act, it's debatable as to whether or not it's actually done what they promised it would do, which is decrease the number of uninsured black Americans. It's only gone from 21 to 20% in 1 year's time.
He's voting with the party.
Actually, it has, though. I mean, so the bottom line is, if you look at the percentage of African Americans who now have health care, they have lowered that. And here's the other piece. A lot of Republicans they were not running against the Affordable Care Act because it actually has been going well.
Yeah. He has a record. They elected him anyway. We have some new members coming in. We'll have to see what they do, but it has to be somebody at the ground, voters, voter groups, holding these elected officials accountable, Democrat or Republican. Otherwise, doesn't matter who you elect. They're going to talk to you during election time and ignore you as soon as the polls close. Otherwise, I mean, that's where we seem to be. That's the cycle we're in.
Right, and that's why we have to keep engaged all the time. People cannot walk away and say, oh, I voted, and that's it. Every day we got to be holding folks accountable.
But I think we need to hold on to this moment where black Republicans made history on Tuesday night.
I know the GOP is holding on.
And if they represent their districts, if they represent their districts, it's fine. But if you want to actually expand who the Republican Party can talk to, they have to be able to talk to people outside of their districts. That's where my question comes into play. I think Tim Scott is great for South Carolina. I don't know if he's great if you were trying to send him to Maryland, Illinois, or other places in a 2016 campaign.
Jason, Judith, Orlando, y'all can continue the conversation. Out of here. I got to go.